Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to you all. And so welcome to another Tuesday webinar with the Center for Global Higher Education. I'm Lee Ransomer from the UCL Institute of Education. Very pleased to welcome you all to a presentation today by Annan Chen, also from UCL Institute of Education. And she'll be speaking to us today about her doctoral project, recently completed, having just passed her viva. So big congratulations to her.
Thank you.
And her work on the signaling effect of T&E degrees, and so the graduate labor market in relation to Sino-Foreign joint universities. So before we hand over to Annan, just a quick message about housekeeping for these webinars in case you haven't attended before. We have invite the presenter to speak for 25-30 minutes, and then afterwards we'll open up the floor for question and answers and hopefully have a lively discussion and engagement. So when we get to that stage, or to say before we get to that stage, please keep your microphones muted, and then when we get to the Q&A, the best way to do it would be to put your questions or comments in the chat function first, and that way myself or Annan can call upon you to then to join in and ask your question. And when it's your turn to do so, you can turn on your microphone, turn on your webcam if you like, and ask your question directly. So I think that's all for housekeeping. So we're very happy to hand over now to Annan. Annan, welcome. Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lee, and good to see you again. Hi, everyone. My name is Annan Chen, and thank you for Lee's introduction of me. So I just passed my viva about 2 weeks ago. So I'm very glad and very honored to have this opportunity today to present and promote part of my research. So my doctoral research focused on the employability of graduates from Sino-UK joint universities. So my presentation today talks about a small section of my findings, which I think are very interesting. And it not only focuses on the specific Chinese context, and also I think it provides some valuable implications to T&E and international higher education from a broader context. So that's basically about the signaling effects of T&E degrees. So are graduates from Sino-UK or Sino-Foreign joint universities favored in the graduate labor market outcome? So first, I'll give a brief introduction of transnational education T&E in China, and specifically concerning the China-Foreign cooperation in running universities and programs. So the reason why it is capitalized because it is a specific terminology in China, which mainly talks about the China-Foreign cooperation in higher education. So basically, it is an innovative breakthrough in the internationalization of higher education after reform and opening up policy since around 1980s. So as China's economic transform from centralized or socialized form to capitalized and marketized form. So there are greater cooperation between China and other partners in different aspects, so including higher education. Then entering to 2020s, the 21st century, China's entry into World Trade Organization lead to the rising demand of qualified graduates with global talents or with like international competence. So therefore, like the labor market has a greater needs for global talents who has like English competence or intercultural communication skills. So therefore, this makes the China-Foreign cooperation in higher education really important and urgent. Then in 2003, the State Council and the Chinese government issued regulations on China-Foreign cooperation in running schools. So therefore, the China-Foreign cooperation has been legalized, and they have some regulations concerning the establishment and the fundings or the investment and those stuffs. So up until now, there are more than 2,000 China-Foreign cooperative institutions and projects in China. So generally, there are three types of China foreign cooperation in higher education. The first one is cooperative programs. So these are academic programs jointly designed and delivered by Chinese and foreign higher education institutions in various aspects, including like subject and design, discipline, and curriculum development. But still, they're affiliated to a certain university in China. For example, you can see some examples like the master program of Peking University and Tsinghua University with other universities in other countries. And the second one is the secondary affiliated colleges. So compared with cooperative programs, so these are colleges. So they have more autonomy in aspects like staff recruitment or student recruitment, and they have more autonomy in in money issues. But still, they're affiliated with a certain college or university in China. For example, the Shanghai International College of Design and Innovation of Tongji University and other examples. And here comes the third type, which is independent joint universities. So which is the main focus of my research in today's presentation. So compared with compared with the other two forms of cooperation, so they are kind of found and jointly found a new university in China, so which have the independent legal personality. So technically, they're considered as independent universities in China. So therefore, they have autonomy in various aspects like management, recruitment, operation. So basically, they're independent university, like has no relation or is not affiliated with other universities. So they're new universities in China. So up until now, there are altogether 11 independent joint universities, which have been officially approved and recognized by the Chinese official governments and the Ministry of Education. And you can see the table here listing the name of the university, their host universities, and the home countries. So when I started my doctoral program 4 years ago, there are only 9 universities in China, 9 joint universities in China, but now there are 11 altogether. So we can see they're trained that Chinese governments are paying more attention to focusing on those independent joint universities, probably due to various aspects such as the geopolitical tensions. So China is trying to give international higher education within its border without relying on other countries. So this bar chart, this pie chart indicate like the proportion of different countries and contributions of foreign countries in this kind of joint cooperation. Okay, so what are special about those universities? So here like the most salient speciality of those universities. They're having 4 English environments. So English is the medium of instruction for those universities in all courses. And even if it's delivered by Chinese professors, they're still speaking English like we do in all classes in China. And also they recruit professors and lecturers globally from all the countries. And they're using international curriculum pedagogy, some of which are directly introduced or borrowed from the host country in the host foreign country. And they offer various intercultural activities, and they have multiple opportunities to have international exchange in other countries. And then also they have double degrees after graduation, so which is the focus of today's presentation. So before I delve into the double degrees and the main topic, I'm gonna give you some background information about the research, so which is about the Chinese labor market. And I believe there are many Chinese scholars or peers today in this webinar, so probably you know what I'm talking about. So the expansion of higher education in China since 1999 had led to the development of higher education, of course, but also the oversupply of college graduates. So there are more there are a huge number of college graduates graduating and leaving the college every year, but in the labor market, there are like surely insufficient positions or graduate level jobs for those graduates. So for example, in 2021, like over 9 million students graduated from university. So like a number much higher than the previous years. And I believe in recent years, in 2024, there are like more than that. So which leads to the degree inflation, which is in China we call Nei Juan. It's like a kind of like vicious competition of people like pursuing a higher level of degree, but still finding difficult to get jobs in the labor market. So which leads to high unemployment. For example, in 2022, like around 18.2% of people, young people in urban areas and cities are unemployed. So the picture here is kind of telling some interesting story. For example, in China, like some college graduates or graduates from like top university in China, they're doing job like delivery guys, or they're like, as you can see from the left picture, they're like to overwork all the time, like in their job. So as I mentioned before, those joint universities offer double degrees for graduates after graduation. So normally they will have students will have the degree of the foreign host university and also the degree of the international joint universities. For example, students from the New York Shanghai, they will have like the degree from the joint university, the New York Shanghai, and also the degree of the New York University. And also for students in University Nottingham Ningbo, they will firstly have the degree from University of Nottingham and also the degree from those special joint universities. So therefore, they have a double identity in the labor market where they can both be considered as the local graduate and also be considered as like international students. So here comes the signaling theory, which is the theoretical framework that I use for this part of the research. So signaling theory basically consider like individuals invest in education as an indicator of their unobservable abilities to employers when firms receive insufficient information on candidates in the recruitment. So that is to say, like in the recruitment process, the degree of graduates indicates some of their abilities which the employers might believe them to have. So therefore, Bailey in 2008 say that the validity of signaling theory relies on development of employers' belief system, because employers may sometimes associate some specific skills with a graduate degree. So even if that's not true, they believe they have this kind of degree. They believe they have this kind of skills or attributes, which can be valuable in the later workplace or in the job market. So, and therefore, under this theoretical framework, the TNA degree kind of bring potential advantage of for students in their labor market, because the employers might believe that those graduates have some intercultural competence or have like high English proficiency because they have experienced international higher education, even if it's not true, or even if those competences have not been tested or been demonstrated through the recruitment process. So therefore, we can assume, or we expect that graduates from international joint universities, they have advantage in the labor market, or at least in the recruitment process. So, but however, are these true? So, to test this kind of hypothesis, or to test this people's assumption, so I use mixed methodology in this research. So first, I send survey questionnaire to graduates from both joint universities and also from local Chinese university at the same academic background to have to give a comparison group and to see whether joint university graduates have higher rating of their self-perceived employability compared with their local peers. And afterwards, I conducted interviews with graduates and staff from the international joint universities to see their individual perspective and to see the nuanced information behind their survey choices. So, what is self-perceived employability? So first talk about employability. Employability is widely considered as a set of achievements to help graduates gain employment and be successful in their chosen workplace. So employability is not employment, because you can have employability, but on the other hand, you cannot. That does not necessarily mean you can have employment in the labor market. So Roosevelt and other researchers generally define self-perceived employability as the perceived ability of a certain people to obtain sustainable employment appropriate to one's qualification level. So namely, that's like people's self-perception of their ability as like whether they can have a job which is proper in terms of their degree and their skills. So although the self-perception like certainly does not equal to actual capabilities, it plays a crucial role in multiple aspects of our employability and career development, because people usually like tend to process information and make decisions primarily influenced by our self-perception rather than objective assessments of their abilities. Like when we feel employable, like that can be very beneficial for us, especially if we are new graduates, because it helps us get like security and independence, and we can get more motivation and develop behaviors that could lead to enhanced job effectiveness. So therefore, in other words, self-perceived employability is highly positively related to our real employability. So as you can see, Rothwell talks about 8 dimensions of employability, 4 dimensions of self-perceived employability, including my university, my field of study, the state of external labor market, and self-belief. So these 4 different dimensions influence our self-perceived employability. And also, we can evaluate our self-perceived employability based on these 4 dimensions in different statements under these dimensions. So for my research, I basically choose 4 different statements evaluating students' employability. The first one concerning whether employers prefer your specific undergraduate program of your university. That is to indicate the preference or the value of your degree in employer's eyes. And the others concerning the skills and ability, and whether you think you can be successful in the job interview, and also whether you can secure a real job with those skills and experiences. So the survey results show that graduates from international joint university, they exhibited higher self-perceived employability in the specific first statement concerning employers' preference towards their special international degree. However, for the other 3 statements, we can see that this kind of self-confidence or advantage does not necessarily translate into their higher perceived confidence in skills and abilities. That is to say, they have confidence that employers might prefer their degree, but they're not confident that they have better skills or attributes, and they're not confident that they can have actual job compared with their local peers. And then the interview results interestingly demonstrate controversial and polarized reputation of international joint universities and TNE institutions, or TNE as a whole in the Chinese labor market. Firstly, we can find that different areas in China have like conflicted or different perspective of TNE degree and international joint universities in China. For example, more than half of the graduates indicated that they receive benefits concerning employers' preference in their TNE degree in first-tier developed cities, including Shanghai, Beijing, and also other coastal areas, like also including like special regions like Hong Kong and Taiwan. So in these areas, usually employers themselves, they might have some international experiences, and so therefore they have like recognition of international experiences, and they know that probably graduates with international experience will have global competence that they need. And also another reason we found is because those graduates from international universities, after they graduate, they usually work in those first-tier developed cities. So therefore, they bring good reputation in those areas to different enterprises, employers. On the other hand, in areas like England or northern provinces, employers even have negative reputation for T&E degrees in international joint universities. They even think those joint universities are kind of wild chicken university. That's a phrase in Chinese, which means these universities are of low quality, and they're not kind of even recognized by the official government. They're just using money to market and just to earn money in terms of higher education. So in those areas, graduates even found that they're less favored, they're less preferred by employers, and they find it difficult to gain employment in those areas. And at the same time, we also find that different areas or like different industry of employment have different perspective of those T&E degrees. So for foreign joint venture, obviously they have preference for T&E degrees, and also for technology service industries like and also financial industry and wholesale and the retail industries, students are favored in the labor market. But on the other hand, so compare with other elites, compare with other graduates from those elite Chinese universities, T&E degrees are not competitive for state-owned or state-holding enterprises. It's quite interesting because graduates say that when they apply for a job in like state-owned enterprises, those employers even like consider they're not as good as people study in the local Chinese universities because they think they're kind of hard to control, or they prefer graduates like who are party members already before in the university, or they have like speciality in sports and arts, and they like prefer collective value. So they have like they're really like graduates say like they consider they are easy to control in terms of being an employee in those industries. So therefore we find employers have different perspectives of T&E degrees, and some are positive and some are not effective and even negative. Discussion here. From this part of my research, I find that T&E degree do not necessarily bring benefits to Chinese graduates. So both from the survey, we find that graduates have advantage in being preferred by employer, but in interview, we find it's not that case. It's not necessarily bring benefits. And then we find from the survey results, we find there's an issue of the balance between emphasizing signaling strengths of international higher education and prioritizing the development of transferable and in-demand skills. We can see that graduates are confident that they can have benefits in terms of employers' preference towards their degree, but they're not confident in being better in terms of transferable skills and demands. So that is to say, how can universities balance giving signal strengths of their international degree to graduates and develop graduate skills? So are joint universities focused too much on giving strengths of their international degree, or are they paying enough attention to develop graduate skills and attributes? So this is an issue that I think different universities and also international higher education on the broader concept should think about. And then concerning the signaling effect, we find that signaling theory does not work specifically in the Chinese labor market, because in the Chinese labor market, getting employment is dependent on different factors, including your own skills and employability, including your degree, and also including different objective factors in the labor market, including like employers' preference and in different industry and different areas, and even other things like the whole economic situation in China. So even if you think you are capable of getting a job, you might still not get a job eventually that you want. And finally, the last but not least, I think signaling effect of T&E degree urge us to think about education inequality to some extent, because and I didn't mention that those joint universities charge much higher tuition fee than other local Chinese universities in China. So, and also from my research, I realized that most of the graduates, most of students entering those universities often relatively well-off families, so whose family education background or occupation status are better than their local peers. So those already have benefits in financial status or in other aspects entering to join universities, and then after graduation they may still enjoy some benefits in the labor market. So this kind of lead to the inequality in education. So these are the things that I really wanted to discuss with you and to let other scholars to think about. Okay, and then finally some recommendations. So firstly, joint universities should implement policies to enhance the quality and boost their reputation, especially in areas that I mentioned in inland area and or in northern part of China. So that is something that need to focus on, especially in concerning the quality enhancement. And then universities should develop graduates high quality skills to help them better prepare for labor market. Like other than just giving them a degree, graduates need to develop something and have add-on value in higher education, and also certainly the importance of international cooperation in higher education. Yeah, that's all. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to your feedback and your comments.
Well, thank you very much, Anna. That was great. It's
Thank
lovely
you.
to finally hear the entirety of your project. I should disclose that I've known Anna for a couple of years and I've been following her work, and this is nice to see the entire project and now that it's complete.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to hear your findings. So, okay, this is now the start of the Q&A phase of the webinar. So we welcome you to place your questions in there's a separate Q&A tab here. We have a chat and then a Q&A. So if you put your questions there, we can have a look at them and join in. So I guess I'll start things off. I would love to actually just start with a really maybe it's an easy question, but I wanted to ask you just about the differential value of the different kinds of providers. So you had 11 in your sample. They're from different countries. They have different prestige or different rankings. Do you get a sense of, based on the findings of self-perceived employability, any strong differences between them?
I'm not doing like comparison between those universities. I'm just doing comparison between like joint universities and local Chinese university. Yeah. So between those, like among those universities, I didn't have like specific evidence concerning the comparison of those different joint universities. But from the interview, I kind of realized some small difference between, for example, two Sino-UK joint universities. So the one like the Nottingham Nimble like focus more on borrowing the English environment, and like they're kind of introduce all curriculum pedagogy from the UK side. But the other one, the Liverpool one, like they're kind of like develop their own design of curriculum, and they want more autonomy in like giving more Chinese aspects to those joint universities. So these are the differences that I found from my research. But concerning like those within institution comparison, they didn't have like empirical evidence on that. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for the question.
Well, yeah, sure. No, and it was just prompted by thinking about the types of universities that do partner. There's quite a range, even within single countries. I don't know if employers had a certain preference for one national brand or another, but even within that particular national brand, you do have quite a difference between like Nottingham and well, I guess what are some other UK?
Liverpool.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
Yes, right. In terms of its own prestige or rankings, right? So I wondered if that had impact, because I know even the QS rankings is baked into policy making.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases. Yeah.
I think employers in China, they really focus kind of on like QS ranking thing, because like concerning international higher education, because they kind of don't really know much about international universities in China. So they on one hand focus more on QS ranking, and they on the other hand, I think they really rely highly on their own perspective of kind of alumni or graduates that they have personal contact with. So that's why we found out like a virtuous circle in the labor market. It's like when graduates enter into an enterprise where they like expand their reputation and they're performing well in those companies, and then the employers like similar employers, they'll have better expectation of perspective and opinions on those joint university graduates. So it's like the more they enter that universities, or the more they enter those enterprises, like the higher chances those enterprises will recruit graduates from that university. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you for that.
But that also, sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that also kind of lead to the less favored positions of graduates for state-owned enterprises, because there aren't many graduates entering to state-owned companies in China. So therefore, those state-owned companies, they do not know much about international joint universities. And that's why they kind of like preferred elite Chinese universities than those joint universities. So it's kind of biased opinion in the labor market.
Just one clarification that I'd like to ask then, in the case of working for the public sector or state-owned industries, are there certain like legal limitations that come from joint international universities, like not the degree is not recognized to the same extent as a Chinese domestic university degree?
No, they're actually I mean, for those 11 joint universities, because they're officially recognized by the Ministry of Education, so those degrees are recognized. But the employers might have some stereotype of those universities. They kind of think, even if you recognize, those universities are kind of like just earning money and of low quality, or some, especially for those inland part of China.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification there. Great. Okay. So we have a question in the chat first from David Mills, and then also a hand raised from Min. So let's go to David first.
Thanks, Lee, and thanks, Anna. Really interesting. I think you sort of answered my question a bit by saying some of it's about a lack of knowledge in terms of people not understanding, or the perception of. It's interesting. It's very interesting what you're saying about the perception that international partnerships are about money making, and I wonder whether that's based on either, people's bad experiences, or where that's coming from. But my other question then, really, perhaps more specifically to this then, is there a form of political signaling going on here? You mentioned that the graduates from the elite national universities were sort of easier to control, as you put it. They're more likely to be party members. Was there a way in which, if you went to do a degree in one of these joint universities, somehow you were sort of hedging your bets about your commitment to China and to a career in China, in that you might be less likely to be a party member or something?
I think in China, the preference for like party member is not. I think it's not specific political. It's like more. It signals some attributes or skills from graduates. It's like it's not like it's specifically political or doing something for the party. It's not like that. It's like it signals like you're kind of like you're like loyal to the company, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting. Thank you. That's really interesting. That's great talk.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Yes, great. Min, you've had your hand up. Would you like to come in?
Yes, my name is Lu Min. English name is Rebecca. Thank you, Anna. Your sharing and research is very interesting. I'm also doing the PhD study in the transnational TNE field. So your sharing is, give me a lot of insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. In terms of your second recommendation on improving on high quality skills in TNE to help students or graduates become more competitive in the market, I was wondering if global competence was prioritized in the TNE teaching and learning in your studied case study. So to what extent global competence was prioritized in the teaching and learning delivery in the TNE University?
I think, as I mentioned before, for example, they're like having full English environments for students, and they're like enhancing intercultural activities for students, and they're like and they're offering like international exchange for students to be like largely exposed to intercultural environments so that they can gain some intercultural communication skills, and they understand better different cultures, and they have and practice their interpersonal skills with people from other countries and cultures. So that's, I think, those joint universities are highly focused on paying attention to in their whole like learning environment. But as I mentioned, probably I didn't mention, like the 95% of the students in those two universities are Chinese students. So it's like, that's why it's more like Chinese university with international elements. So therefore, so then sometimes like a low proportion of international students in those universities. So I think you posed a great question in terms of like, apart from communicating with international peers, how global competence can be enhanced in those joint universities. Yeah, I'm wondering, do you have any insights?
Can I ask a further question? In terms of global competency, I mean, my question was it prioritized in the teaching perspective or in the student learning perspective? For example, were teachers or educators get professional development training for that, how to deliver global competence in the daily delivery, teaching delivery?
I think global competence is kind of an issue, like nuanced issue. It's hard to like specifically say that teachers are getting global competence training to cultivate global competence to students. I think it's more like integrated in different perspective, in different aspects of the learning. For example, integrated in the international pedagogy, international curriculum, or intercultural activities. I don't think those staff, at least the staff that I interviewed, they have trainings concerning global competence when they like are working in the joint universities. And I don't think students are explicitly getting some global competence education in those joint universities. I think it's more like they like kind of develop their different skills and transferable skills through their communication or through their involvement in the international environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, great. Okay, it looks like the questions are coming in. So let's move quickly to now Rachel. She's asking a question quite similar to the one I was going to ask you about international students. Rachel, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, thanks.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, a couple of questions, I suppose. Is there any evidence from employers themselves? Have other people been looking at actual employers' perspectives? And if not, I suppose, how accurate do you think graduates or students' perspectives of employers' perspectives are? And then secondly, I suppose, in terms of employability in China, how do TNE degrees compare to those that are wholly international? So is there a kind of a hierarchy of types of degree in those, compared to those elite Chinese universities that you were talking about? So, sorry, two questions there, Arthur.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think it's like one limitation of my research is I did not like directly interview employers concerning those issues. So those data or those findings that I have is like based on staff and graduates, their perspective of employers or their communication with employers. For example, for graduates, it's like through their process of job hunting and through their some communications with employers, they gain some information from employers, or they gain some opinions from the employers. So it's not like directly connect to employers for those information. And for the hierarchy of international higher education, I think joint universities, as I mentioned, is kind of complicated. Like, so they're on one hand giving international higher education, but they're on the other hand located in China for the 4 years. So it's also considered as kind of Chinese university. So I think employers' perspective is kind of a mix of both international education and also local Chinese education. So I think in terms of the signaling effects of international higher education, I think like total student mobility or getting degrees from other countries, I think is better in terms of signaling effects of international competence than those joint universities.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. So Kelly, you also have a question here. Yep.
Yeah. So thank you for your presentation. I'm just very curious about, because you mentioned about students from this TN university feel low confident than those, in the local university. I'm just wondering what is the reason behind that? Because I feel like whether the university curriculum designer will feel cost and feel segregations from labor markets or anything other reasons behind it.
So the survey did not show like they're less confident their local peers. It's like they're not higher. They're like they not demonstrate higher confidence than their local peers. So basically the confidence level are the same between joint university students and local students.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
If I could come in there on the topic of low confidence, and I just wanted to link this to some very recent literature I was reading about Haidai or Haifei. Am I pronouncing these correctly? I don't know. But the translation was forgive the translation, but overseas returning waste. And I don't know if this rings any bells or not, but the literature is saying that there's a general lack of confidence in returning international students in terms of accessing jobs on the job market.
Yeah.
And
I think,
yeah.
You said yeah.
So I think it's Haidai, or it was the more positive connotation. Haifei, I think, was the quite critical. It was a self-applied label, right?
Are you saying 海归? Like
Haigui is also yeah, that was another one.
It's like that's like overseas returnees, to the Chinese labor market. I think one reason could be those students have higher expectation of their unemployment than those without international higher education. I think because like they kind of spend more money and efforts in getting international higher education, so they kind of like have higher expectation of a certain employments or in enterprises or industry they want. For example, they want to go to some like top companies in China or other countries, and so they kind of have low confidence in getting those employment because these jobs are really competitive. So I think it's kind of related to expectation thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so it's and does that mean that you wouldn't expect to hear that kind of negative discourse from a TNE graduate? Like they wouldn't see themselves in that same category necessarily.
You mean this?
the Haifei label.
Yeah. I think they consider themselves as not exactly 海归, but kind of like have some speciality compared with pure Chinese graduates. Yeah. So it's quite complicated, like for their identity and also for those like speciality of those joint universities in China.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, thank you so much. All right, moving on then to Oliver. Oliver, are you with us? If not, Oliver, I'll just read it out for you. It says, thank you for the presentation. How many students, participants, and academic staff participants did you interview? Did you interview graduates and employers too?
Yeah, as I said, I didn't like interview employers. I just interview graduates and staff. It's like about 30 altogether, 30 people from my interview.
Directions for future research then. Do you think you'll do a follow-up looking at employers?
I think so. I think that would be like they will have like really great perspective and information to this topic.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so going on to Vincenzo.
Hi, Anand. I'm interested in the relative competitiveness of entry to different types of routes. how do admission to TNE routes compare to admission to elite Chinese universities, and how do they compare to admission directly to a UK university, and whether these differences in entry requirements, if there are any differences, have an impact on the relative status or signalling of the qualification that these graduates hold.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your question. I think I probably forgot to mention, like, they all recruit students through Gaokao, like the national admission, the national examination for college admission in China. So they have the same recruitment process compared with local Chinese universities. On the other hand, when you mention like those students directly go to UK universities, they have a totally different way of recruitment because they need to go to international high school in China to study those international programs like the IB program or the like A-level program to get into the UK universities for undergraduate students. So therefore, those graduates in the joint university, they are kind of similar to graduates for local Chinese university, while quite different from those entering to foreign universities directly. So I think concerning the signaling effect, so that's why I mentioned the education inequality. I think those students, they're kind of from well-off family, so that can give them some advantages in terms of their like social networks or like cultural social capital. But I think those signaling effects are not as strong as the international degree in the labor market in China.
But are the Gaokao entry scores very different between entry to an elite Chinese university and, say, a TNE program?
Yeah. So those generally those the Gaokao standard is like lower than the elite Chinese universities. Yeah. So that's why most employers, especially in the state-owned companies, they prefer elite Chinese university graduates.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that sort of makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
So can I ask, would these be students who are vying for elite Chinese universities, but then maybe if they're not successful in the Gaokao in the way they imagine they would be, then this is a second best option for them?
Yeah. I think so. I think some graduates, they know that they cannot enter into the elite universities, so that's why they choose joint university, because they think probably the international education can give them some advantage in the employment in the labor market, so that can compete those elite university graduates.
I see. So by extension, then these would not be students who are intending to study overseas from the start and then were attempted by a branch campus instead.
I think so. They're not because they participate in Gaokao, so which means they like over 90% they will not go to other countries in the beginning, in the first place. Because in China, if you want to be enrolled into UK universities, like in undergraduate level, you're gonna learn the international program to get like A-level tests or IB tests to get into UK universities before Gaokao. Yeah. So
So that's interesting, because that's a definitive answer to the substitution effect question. There's a lot of that in the TNE literature around whether branch campuses are simply replacing the demand for studying overseas, and it sounds like in this case it's two distinct markets, different students.
Yeah, I think so. So that's why I say like international joint university is kind of specific in the Chinese context. It's different to like other branch campus or in other countries and other TNE institutions in other contexts.
Okay. Oh, great. All right. Thank you very much. We've got some more questions here from next Axel. Axel mentions that they're in a noisy room. Axel, do you want me to read it? For you? I'll do that. Okay, so it just says, thank you for your fascinating research. Wonder if you could say a bit more about what you mentioned earlier with Sino-Foreign institutes wanting to pursue a more Chinese style of education.
I think that's because Chinese, like I think Chinese or like the Chinese party or the Chinese government does not want those universities to be purely an overseas branch campus of the UK or US university. They want to add some Chinese elements to the education to make it a special university in China. So that's why they're like also educating like Chinese cultural courses. Also like they're designing their own curriculum based on the specific needs of the Chinese labor market. So that's why I say like they want to like more. I should not say Chinese style. They want to like more Chinese elements to those TNE institutions and programs. They don't want to make it like purely a Chinese campus of the University of Nottingham in China.
So is there something transitional about these campuses, like that in somewhere in the future, maybe the international partner would pull away and it would just be a freestanding, well, some kind of hybrid international institute, or does it still require the presence of the foreign partner, not only for the signaling effect, but also just for that international relationship that it extends?
I think so. I think they don't want to like purely overseas branch campus, and they also don't want to like without the international parties' contribution. So they really want to like mixture of localized and internationalized education.
Yeah, because to that extent, then it's sort of similar to what they call turnkey institutions elsewhere, like the American University of Sharjah, Cairo, Beirut, or whatever, where you have like a foreign style of education, or actually there's these, I think it's like the German Egyptian University of Technology or something like that, where there's this like foreign partnership that is anyway. Just thinking that it's not, it's something in between a branch campus and a domestic provider, and it maintains that international flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, so enough for me. Let's see. Ending. Ending, are you with us? Yeah. All right. Well, I'll have a go at it. Thanks. So thank you for your insightful presentation. I wonder what educational level are the students at? Are they undergraduate, postgraduates? Oh, okay. Do you find any differences in their employment compared to local students? Well, I think that was.
Yeah. So these are like undergraduate students, and also the difference in employment. I didn't like did like comparison of their employment, because most of the graduates, like they're recent graduates, they just graduated within 5 years. Some of them are still in a study, in a postgraduate research or teaching a study. So it's hard to compare the employment. But I think for secondary data analysis, you can find like each university publish their career reports in China to the Chinese governments every year. So you can see their employment outcomes of different universities. So basically, remember the employment outcomes of joint universities are similar as those elite Chinese universities in terms of employment rate and further study rate.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And has that been stable throughout, or do you see like a change in direction or trends over time?
I think they have really, really high further study rate. Yeah, like kind of like much higher than most of the local universities. It's so basically, which means like probably around 80% of those graduates like continue education, either in China or mostly in other countries after graduation from undergraduate studies.
I see. So does that tend to be like a pipeline or a feeder to further study?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the case. Yeah.
And so PhDs are not currently on offer at these campuses.
I think I think they have like small probably research center for PhD degrees, and they're offering more. They're like establishing more PhD point or stations in China. Yeah, for like those universities, because they also want to like whole round development of higher education, not just undergraduate studies.
I see. Okay. All right. Great. It looks like we have 2 more questions here. Let's get them in here before we run out of time. So Yuqi.
Yeah. Thank you, Anne and I'm just wondering how you are controlling the ability or the skills of the two groups from international universities and local universities, and especially when you are mentioning that state-owned entrepreneurs are more are preferring the ones from local elite universities. I don't know which kind of elite universities you're referring to, but I am assuming perhaps they're having different Gaokao scores, and especially when you are mentioning and you are measuring the signaling effect, I think maybe the ability, I assume you are expecting they're at the same level, and I'm just wondering how you are controlling this. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. For the local Chinese university, I just I calculate their Gaokao scores in like past 5 years, and basically I choose those with the similar Gaokao entrance level with the joint universities.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, I see. That's a neat clarification. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It looks like we have one final one here from Kelly. More of a comment than a question. Kelly, do you want to share it?
Oh yeah, so I just want to share a story with you guys. So our high school is focused on AP program, but during that year, so it's like COVID started.
Yeah.
So during that year, as long as you just get the QS top 100 offers from foreign universities, you could just directly and unconditionally to enroll in Inbo Nottingham universities.
Yeah, that's a like special policy from the Chinese government to help those with like travel restrictions. To study in China. Yeah, that's a like go global policy. Yeah.
And I feel like whether this Ningbo Nottingham University lack of students, so they just need to have this policy to hire more students. I don't know.
I think that's like more Chinese government's intention of helping those students. So they're kind of sending those students to different joint universities in China, including Nottingham, Ningbo, and also other like New York, Shanghai, and like Wenzhou campus. They're helping those students to get higher education.
Okay. Thank you for clarification.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that.
They're great questions here. So if you got time for just one more, and then there's a clarification from David. He just go ahead, David. Yeah.
Hi, so just to follow up, it's been so interesting because you've been trying to unpack the different routes through, and as Chen just pointed out, so I'm assuming if you couldn't afford to go to international school, then doing well in Gaokao to go to international university position in a joint degree positions you better then for postgraduate study abroad and possibly a better chance of a scholarship. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Like that's like exactly the motivation for some of the graduates or some of the students. They want to get international higher education, but they don't want to like do that for 4 years for undergraduate studies. Yeah.
Because that would be much more expensive, wouldn't it? I mean,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's really interesting.
Thank you.
So it's not only more cost effective, but it's also academically easier to navigate that way.
Yeah. So many students are using that as a springboard for further education in other countries for postgraduate studies.
Yeah. And do you know if there's much of a presence of recruitment agencies or consultants who direct high school graduates to the onshore campuses rather than studying overseas and maybe getting a commission from it still?
Probably. I don't know much about agencies, but I think so.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. It looks like we're out of time here. Anna, and I still have lots of questions that I'll happily put to you on another day, because this has been such a great, engaging conversation. So thanks to the audience, but especially thank you to you and Anna for a really wonderful presentation and thoughtful responses to all those questions. So thank you all, and we'll look forward to seeing you the same time next week for another webinar. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to draw this to a close, and I'll say goodbye for now. Thank you very much.